Greetings, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Lexcia podcast. This is your host, Wesley Pepper. This is episode 206. And yeah, man, I don't really have any announcements regarding the app, but I was chatting to the developers earlier on this week. In fact, yesterday, we had to rebuild a few things and stuff. But I'll keep everybody posted on that. I almost probably will do another episode on just before, or rather when we wrap up the beta testing. I will do an episode around that, probably towards middle of or towards the latter part of November. Anyway, enough of that. Today, I got a very cool guest. I'm talking to Kate Skinner, the Executive Director of the Association of Independant Publishers. They're celebrating the 20th years of existing. But there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about here. So let's just get to my guest. Firstly, Kate, my sister, welcome to the Lexcia podcast. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. Just wonderful to be here. So yeah, great.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Let's jump straight into it, man. The AIP has been around for the past 20 years, since 2005. Just tell us a little bit about people who are not familiar with them. You know, how you guys founded and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so we're an association, basically an industry body, and we've got a number of publications that are part of us. And they're often publications that people haven't heard of because they're small, they're on the ground. But for those particular communities that, you know, where they are based, they're very, very important. And so I'll give you some examples of like some of these publications. So for instance, we've got this amazing publication called Umbele. And Umbele is an isiZulu publication, and it's a business publication, and everything is in isiZulu. And the person that leads this publication is someone called Slendile Kanile. And she is a seasoned journalist. She knows the field. She's an amazing entrepreneur. And she's produced this publication. And then let me give you another example. Somebody called Juan Dambuza. He's based in rural Eastern Cape, Bizana, and he's got a publication called Pondoland Times. Yeah. He is super innovative. He loves AI. He has created his own app. He has got incredible content on TikTok, and he covers rural Eastern Cape and you know what is happening, if there's like corruption, malfeasance, but also if there's some fantastic good things happening, he covers that all. And maybe just a third example is you know, we've got this publisher who is actually one of our founders, and we're going to be celebrating him. Somebody called Anton van Sale. He is up in Louis Trichardt, Mercado, and he is he's actually got this publication called Limpopo Mirror. Limpopo Mirror has won awards for courageous journalism. It's won the Nat Nakaza Award for community journalism, and they have uncovered corruption with the lotto. So they were able to show that there was all sorts of lotto projects that were supposedly amazing, spending lots of money, you know, building, you know, clinics, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, hey guys, there's nothing here. This lotto money has not been well spent. In fact, has really not been spent at all. And so he's done this incredible investigative journalism. So those are some of the publications. One of the publications that members, some of your audience might know, is Ground Up. So we're really, really proud to have Ground Up as one of our members. Yeah. You know, they've done incredible stories. So yeah, so those are our members, and we as the industry body build them, support them, give them legal support, get them capacity building and amazing kind of training workshops. We're they're celebrators, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask how do you work with them? So it's like an incubator for independent publishers, correct?
Exactly.
If I must think of another word.
Yeah. Yeah. I think really
so can you just like give us like sort of like these small business incubators, or I get a sense of it. So actually, let me sort of just run with that a little bit, or rather just expand a little bit on that. Can you just Yeah, like you were mentioning Ground Up. I mean, they are. I mean, I follow them a lot. I mean, I follow them. I'm a supporter of Ground Up. Can you tell me, like, how can you just give us a breakdown of, like, how do you guys work with them? So if do they guys, as a collective, as a company, come to you? Do you assess them and say, okay, this is what you guys need, this is where you need to focus on, and you got, like, do workshops and so forth and build them and sort of help them with funding? Is that the process?
Yeah, good question, because it's kind of also just to say that these publications are very varied and have all kinds of different needs. So there's different
Mm-hmm.
support that we give to different kinds of publications. The
Mm-hmm.
process in terms of becoming a member is what happens is that a publication will come to us and say, hey, we want to be a member of AIP. We've heard of AIP, and then we get the provincial chairperson. And we're based in all the different provinces, except Northwestern Northern Cape is like just one province in provincial structure. So you've got 8 provincial structures. And so people will come and they'll say, hey, we want to be a member of AIP. And then basically the board will look at that publication. They'll ask for previous copies. They'll want to know what the mission and vision of that publication is. And then the board will look at it and say, hey, you look wonderful. You look like you are innovative. You look like you want to build South Africa. You're interested in local democracy. And so we would like you to be a member. One of the things which is also really important, Wesley, is ethics. We basically say to all of the publications, you have to be a member of the Press Council. We want you to be ethical. We want you to adhere to the Press Council's ethics code. And that is also absolute fundamental in terms of membership. The other thing is we also want to make sure that you have ethical advertising. So you also have to be a member of the Advertising Regulatory Board, or at least if you're not already a member, we will ensure that you become a member. And so you've got to be happy with that. Ethical advertising, ethical editorial, and then this collective kind of approval from the board in terms of we want you to be a member. The interesting thing is you don't pay a membership fee for AIP. You don't pay that. But
Okay.
what's going to happen next year is that you are going to have to pay, and up until now we've kind of paid Press Council fees for people. But from now onwards, from 2026, every one of our members is going to have to pay their own Press Council fees. And I have to say, Wesley, that's important. Like, you actually have to show that you really are committed. And the money, we're not saying don't pay us.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We get donor funding and corporate funding, etc. But what we want to ensure is that you have an individual relationship with the Press Council. You pay your Press Council fees, you show your commitment through that. And that is something that is becoming really important. So I hope I've answered your question.
You did, absolutely. I would sort of just add on, yeah, like you saying, if you start paying, if an artist or an organization starts to pay for something, they usually take it more serious, because you want to see where your money is going, and you want to get some form of return of investment. So I totally get that. It makes complete business sense. Here's something that I also, listening to what you are saying. I mean, you've been around for 20 years, right? Literally, and this is your 20th year and anniversary. Since 2025, technology has come a long way. It started off, I think, 20 years ago. I think the 31 or the Nokia 33. I think those what are those G2 phones was still a thing. SMS was still a thing. And if my memory serves me, I know this. The print media was still king of the jungle. And fast forward 20 years now, I mean, most of these publications, newsroom either shrinking, staff and just there, and everything has moved digitally. I mean, I'll be very interested now, because like you're saying, you usually have all those things with ethics around advertising, and journalism ethics. And over the past 20 years, if you look, I don't even know where to start. A lot of fake stories floating around the internet. Most people are getting their information from online, from social media platforms. Just give me like your overview on like how this entire landscape has changed over the 20 years, and sort of the AIP's role, and what you guys noticed over that time.
Yeah, lovely question. Yeah, I mean, the landscape has really, really shifted. So you're completely right. So when we started in 2005, I mean, it was mostly a print environment. Not to say that there weren't a number of our
Mm.
publications that had websites, because that's what is so interesting about our sector. It's very varied. So you've got like, even now, like solidly print publications with kind of pretty much the only kind of digital presence is on Facebook. And yet you've got other ones that are
Mm.
like digital only, and literally were like the pioneers in terms of kind of website development and all that kind of thing, like back in the day. So for instance, like the Limpopo Mirror, I mean, Anton Marcel was always experimenting with kind of digital and had a website, but simultaneously also had print. So what you've seen, and I think
Mm.
this is an interesting one, is that you know, I think when things were print, also the economy was sort of a bit different at that point, and a lot more money and a lot more
Yeah,
advertising and things into the
yeah,
media. And so you had like thriving publications. I mean, not all thriving, but a lot more money going in. And then as time has shifted and as the media sector as a whole has really come under pressure, and as things have moved into that digital environment, the big problem is it's incredibly difficult to make money in the digital environment. And so our publications have at various
interesting.
points on a big drive to move into the digital environment, and then have just not been able to make money, and then have had to return to print, and some of them have like created websites, etc., and then really struggled to make money, with their websites. A lot of them have put content out on digital media platforms, have got built like really big audiences, but then actually haven't been able to make money from those digital platforms. And also, they've got
Monetize
some
it.
really
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, crazy things with the algorithms. So, for instance, with Facebook,
Mm.
Facebook then, a while back just deprioritized news, and people had these huge audiences, and they just like lost their audience like overnight. So it's been a really tough environment, and I think also COVID was really, really tricky. I mean, a lot of these small publications then just didn't get advertising. I mean, and so a lot of them closed for a while. But interestingly, with that, is they didn't close permanently. What happened is that they closed for a while, and then once they started to get advertising again, then they picked up. But what I have to say is that the circulation went down. So most of the publishers then started to only produce like 5,000 copies a month. Whereas maybe before they were like 20,000 copies, maybe, and also the regularity of their printing just changed. So, for instance, people would be printing like every week, and then suddenly they were only printing once a month. Um, so I think it's been super tough. I mean, I think also those economies, those small towns, rural areas, those areas are not doing very well. There's not a lot of local advertising happening there. And so what we're needing to do now is to talk particularly about the collective of all our publications. And Wesley, the thing that's interesting is if you look at us collectively, so each little publication doesn't maybe have a particularly huge audience, but collectively we're really powerful. And so you can have, so we're looking at about 2.5 million copies of these publications produced a month, and 7.5 million audience of readers, because every copy would be read by, and we say conservatively, 3 people. And so that's a big audience. And so what we're trying to do now, and I think it's really, really important, but to say to corporate South Africa, this is so important at so many levels. And we're not asking for charity. We believe that you are going to get such a good deal if you advertise in our publications collectively. And so we're wanting like the Boxers, the Spars, the Checkers, the Pick and Pays, those kinds of and particular products, and your fast food, and to advertise across MTNs, Vodacoms, across our publications. And then we believe that that will just mean that with that consistent advertising, it means that the publications will print more regularly. They will greater numbers of copies. Also, obviously, we want to develop the digital side as well. But then the thing is, we've got to also look at different ways of ensuring that that advertising comes into the digital publications. particular sponsorships so that you get more money, because just programmatic advertising, you don't get a lot of money from that. And it's hard to survive. And maybe just the last thing to say, Wesley, we believe that
Please, 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 please.
we think you need to be multi-platform. We think our publishers need to be print, basically your website, but also social media. On all, and we got to know, like, where's your audience? Where your audience is, you want to be. And that's what we're pushing our publications to do. And I think we're at that critical moment where our publishers are now wanting to experiment with all those different audiences. Yeah.
Fascinating. So much to unpack there. I want to start off with because you mentioned rural areas now, rural South Africa. That's also a large demographic. Do you think that print is still very popular over there versus digital?
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people, they keep on saying print is dying, print is dying. That's not our belief. And I mean, of course, it depends on where your audience is, but in rural areas and in small towns, print is still seen as very, very valuable. And the other thing which I think is very interesting about print is that in this age of mis and disinformation, with all this kind of fake news kind of stuff, in fact, printed editions are often seen as very valuable, because it's like there's this
Yes.
that has got more truth to it. And in fact, interestingly, even
Yes.
young audience, of course, young audiences are on digital, and on social media and on
Yes.
TikTok and all that kind of thing. But there's something quite cool about a printed edition. So there's also a sense of saying, as one option, print is still has a lot of value. And I think we need to look at that still continuing. And I mean, again, with some of our power issues and things like that, and money issues, a printed
Yeah.
edition which comes out and you can just pick up, as in it's free to pick up,
Yeah.
is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, man. Sure. I actually wanted to ask something about print media, but it slipped my mind. But I want to get into something also that I would like to ask you about is you mentioned a lot about advertising being sort of the main driving force in funding most of these publications. And you also mentioned, and I'm aware of this one as well, that the advertising cost for print and digital differs. But I know, yes, just for some perspective. So I'm personally also invested in building basically an e-commerce streaming platform, right? To cut it
Yeah.
very short. And there's something I'm fascinated about is like artists and popular figures and so forth can get hundreds of thousands of fans, basically people who follow them online. But I find it very one-dimensional that the only way we can sort of monetize that is through advertising. So if you're streaming something, then you have advertising around it or whatever. And I mean, there's also there's sites like Patreon that allows us audience to sort of support the independent artists. Isn't there other alternative? I mean, because you guys are so networked throughout the country and you have so many different publications, isn't there a sort of a drive or isn't there some people looking at alternative ways of monetizing the online the audience community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think so I mean, it's interesting because we often look to Daily Maverick as kind of a leader in that kind of environment. And so what you have there is a whole lot of different things. So you have a kind of membership model. So the idea there, and I think it is actually a good model for our members as well, is that you basically say, if you believe in this publication, you're going to put money into it. And you don't have to put a lot of money into it. And as individuals, you put money into it. And so it's not like a subscription in the sense of like you can't get the content if you don't pay, because there's this kind of real drive to make sure that anybody, whether you've got money or not, you should be able to see that content. And so there's that whole membership model, which is, individuals putting money in. But a number of our publications also say, hey, guys, if you want our content, you got to pay. And so they are people basically experimenting with the subscription model. And so, for instance, like Limpopo Mirror is, or there's also a publication called Overstrand Herald, which is in the Western Cape, in kind of Claremont, that kind of Hermanus sort of area. So the particular publisher there is saying, you know what, we're looking at paywalls. Juan Tambuza, which I was talking about in terms of Ponderland Times, I mean, interesting, deep rural area. He is experimenting with subscriptions and paywalls. So there's those options. I mean, there's also really interesting options, which again, like Daily Maverick has been using, which is basically you have a marketplace. You sell produce, goods, services from that area, and so and that kind of cross subsidizes the journalism. So I'll just give you an example. So one of the things that the Limpopo Mirror was looking at, saying, hey, we've got some amazing products up in kind of that Louis Trichardt, like, Limpopo area. Things that are produced here, beautiful art, crafts, all that kind of stuff. And we can actually sell that on our website. We don't want stuff from China or whatever from all over. But what makes it, and it's just really interesting about your e-commerce site, there's real potential of e-commerce in that local area, building local businesses, focusing on saying, hey guys, there's some amazing stuff that's produced here, and you sell that online, and that cross subsidizes your business. One other thing I want to talk about is events. Events is something that a lot of media
interesting
uses. And again, I mean, when you think of like Daily Maverick's The Gathering, people love The Gathering. It's a huge event. You can make a lot of money out of that.
Yes.
But, what about local publications doing local events? And then we've also got, like, I just want to give you an example. There's a publication called Stockveld Talk. Stockveld Talk is a fabulous publication. It basically brings together all the different people that are interested in Stockvelds, and they run some beautiful events. They bring in all the corporates, they bring in all the Stockveld owners, they have great conversations about how to run your Stockveld in the most kind of innovative, amazing way. Bring everybody in together and have an event. And then the final thing, Wesley, I'm getting excited about this topic, is
yes, please go for
it. is donor funding. And so there are a number of publications that get great donor funding, and it's because donors look at this and they say, you know what, this is really powerful for democracy. And so, for instance, Ground Up is donor funded, and donors put a lot of money into Ground Up because they absolutely believe in the content. So there's also and again with Daily Maverick, they actually also get donor funding. And one of our real star publications is something called Food for Mzansi, and the publisher there is Ivor Price. Ivor Price is known, globally in terms of like some of the work he's done, just amazing stuff. He also gets a lot of donor funding, and he works in the agricultural community. He looks at small black farmers, women farmers, farmers across the country, and he does really interesting work. He's got a podcast, a great podcast, won international awards for that podcast. And so, and also what I think is interesting is that kind of, you want to get streams of funding from all different places. You want to get advertising funding, you want to get membership funding, you want to get donor funding, you want to get all those different streams of funding in. And that is, I think, what is going to make our publication sustainable over time.
Fantastic, man. I actually want to add on to that. I think that donor funding is also makes the publication a bit more independent and makes the voices a bit more independent. Whereas the past, if you have one massive body funding, you know they sort of get to say what, they sort of can play the strings a bit. Whereas if you spread the pool, so yeah, I think that's an incredibly sustainable thing. And the thing you mentioned at events was very interesting as well. Yeah, I can totally see why that. Yeah. Fascinating stuff here. That actually leads us to the next thing, and we spoke about it slightly online. Your DNT Fund. So for my listeners as well, and just for some perspective on your behalf. So I started this podcast during the hard lockdown in 2020. basically just to track how artists are sort of dealing and coping with, with this completely different world that we were now in. And since then, I've been, podcasting has jumped up. If you look at the US, for example, their last election, a lot of there was a large percentage of the campaigning was done on independent media. And even locally, there's also a few, although the mainstream ones, and I'm being a bit critical here, is a bit more celebrity, fluff. But still, there is plenty. In fact, definitely since COVID. Like you were mentioning, publishing houses that need to think differently in terms of getting funding. Journalists that is not trying to do their own thing. So this DNT Fund seems, the timing seems very good. I read a little bit about on your website in terms of like how much is available. So lots to unpack there. So let's just actually start from the beginning. Can you just explain to us what the DNT Fund is, and and we'll unpack everything.
We are so excited about that project. It's like our most amazing, biggest, wowie kind of cool project. So we basically managed to, on behalf of the industry, so it's not just an AIP fund. I think it's very important to say that it's an industry fund for small and medium-sized publications, and Google put the money into it. It's 114 million rand, which is like, wow, a lot of money, which will be spent over 4 years. A lot of money. And actually the biggest amount of money that's ever been put into the small media kind of sector ever in South Africa. So it's really quite historic.
Interesting.
Really quite historic.
Very, very interesting.
So it's basically it's a digital transformation fund, digital news transformation fund, and so it's particularly around, so all anybody that gets funding from this fund has to be a member of the Press Council. So again, we just bang on that, just the issue of like having to be ethical. Like you're not going to get funding if you're not ethical. And so that's a key component of it. As I say, it's been set up by AIP with this Google funding, but for the entire, for the media industry as a whole. And the kinds of projects that the fund is looking at are projects which are, as I say, digital. Now, as we said, previously, it's difficult to move into the digital environment. And we need to do a lot of experimenting there around different funding models. But also, how do you produce content for the digital environment? And so we're wanting our publishers to be as innovative as possible and to really experiment. So, for instance, just what you're doing yourself, all this stuff around podcasting, it's really popular. People love podcasts. And as you say, it's very powerful in elections. If you look at the US elections, if you look at elections around the world, where are people going to get information? It's often podcasts. It's also interesting things like WhatsApp newspapers, newsletters, and also niche newsletters. So a publication will bring out a whole lot of different newsletters for particular niche, audiences, which are kind of part of their overall audience. And so that's the kind of experimentation that we want, our members to do. To basically go to this digital news transformation fund and say, we've got this new idea. But the other thing, Wesley, which I think is really interesting, is also to say we want individual publications to go and get funding, but we also want the industry bodies to look at the overall environment and say, what can we do to support publications at that macro level? So, for instance, it's hard to have your own podcast, your own website. Now, what happens when somebody hacks that? People have had terrible things with their Facebook pages where they've been hacked. They've lost all their lost access to their content, etc. And so, at a central level, at a national level, to have some tech gurus there to basically support publications, podcasters, etc. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to look at, like, how do you provide services, tech services, and also advertising services collectively at a national level, at a provincial level, and even at a kind of small local level. A number of publications kind of getting together and getting some kind of like centralized kind of tech services, etc., and again advertising services. So that fund is there to practice, experiment, give small little pots of money for publishers to do that kind of work. And we were chatting a little bit about AI, using AI in
I
all
want to
kinds
get to
of
that.
ways. So again, this fund is there for that kind of experimentation as well. And we're hoping to show Google at the end of the 3 years, wow, look what we've done with this entire sector. They're newcomers. Those people that have been there for a very long time are doing new things. Their audiences are happy. The quality of the content that they're producing is really good. We're doing some amazing investigative stuff. But we're also doing, and I wanted to say, Wesley, to you, just because you are clearly, you've got this
Please.
whole following in the arts sector. Our publications are local little publications, but also they're community of interest publications. And so we do have publications, as we said, about the business. So business publications, sport publications, cultural publications, paper, and a lot of religious publications as well. And so we've got community of interest and geographical community. And we're wanting the DNT Fund to support all of those different publications to create depth, interest, innovation. And we want to show that very, very concretely at the end of the 3 years.
Fantastic. Just one question before there's two more main questions before I want to get to your event on the 13th of November.
Yes.
Have you guys funded anybody yet? Have you guys worked with anybody yet?
So good question. This is the key moment. What is going to happen is that I think it's just post the event, which we're going to have our big anniversary event on the 13th. The fund is going to, so we've got a fund manager that basically manages the whole thing and make sure that it's transparent, it's professional, etc. It's called Shikalulu Social Investments. Shikalulu will be making the announcement. They've got there's an independent board and independent adjudicators that have been chosen by the media industry, and they will be actually making the announcement just after the 13th about who has actually got the money. And this is, it's brand new. The first grouping of projects will basically be announced, I think, around the 14th. Of November, around then, maybe not exactly then, maybe the Monday after, because I think the 14th is actually a Friday, so probably the Monday after that there'll be an announcement of who has actually got the funding. But Wesley, those people who've got the funding, they're the first group. There's going to be another window opening in March, and then another two, and then another two. There are going to be 6 windows. Which will open up. We will be announcing the first. So every year of this will be there'll be 2 windows of funding.
That is great news, man. I'm actually very, very personally quite interested in that, because just for some perspective, man. So I have 1 or 2 other friends that are art writers, so they they preview shows, they actually go to shows, for example, like at the Market Theatre or wherever, and write up about that. And like I mentioned earlier on, a lot of these major publishing houses all shrunk, and their budgets have shrunk. So the first type of people who they kick off is unfortunately us. And there's so much happening. That's why I get a guest basically every week. There's I would say that there's so few of us and there's so much to cover. So this you mentioned here is very interesting, and I'm sure my listeners, even myself, is very interested in that. Here's something that I have to ask before I get to the event on the 13th, because we mentioned AI quite a bit, and the generation of fake content and these things have real impact, has political impact, in fact. As the AIP, do you guys have any form of, is there any I guess are you guys doing anything about it? Is there or trying to do something about it, trying to regulate it in some way? Yeah, is there any other of your members that you're working with that is doing something around that?
Hi. Hi, I'm so sorry. I just lost.
Hello.
Hi, I'm back. I suddenly lost connection for some reason.
Oh, there we go.
Apologies about that.
Ugh, nah, these things happen actually way too often. But I'll just cut that bit out, so don't stress it. I was asking you about the whole AI thing, man. As I mentioned, I mean, there's this rise of fake content. There's also artificial intelligence being trained, and this is my major issue. It has been trained using artists' content, and I find there's very little regulation around that. And I've been. Are you still there?
Wesley, I am so sorry. I don't know why suddenly. Anyway, but I seem to be back again.
Ach, don't stress it, man. I deal with it every week, and I'll make it work. I'm actually giggling to myself here. Maybe it's the AI that realized that we're being critical, yeah, and they sabotaging the.
They're sabotaging
I
our
hope
work.
not. Yeah, no, it's a bit dodgy. It's a bit dodgy, I must say. It's a bit
Dodge,
dodgy.
dodge.
The time, yeah, it's the timing is not great, man. I don't know if you got that last bit, but just to
I'm
repeat.
so sorry I didn't get
It's
your
just
last
basically
question.
the regular. Okay, so I was just wanted to ask about the regulation. I mean, artificial intelligence is trained of our work.
Yes.
They use original art to train it, and they use that AI to produce slop or fake content or however you want to phrase it. And there's very little to zero regulation around that. And it's actually in many ways dividing the media section and partitioning it into very uncontrollable. I mean, these rabbit holes run deep because people are believing outlandish stuff, and we can go on and on about the negative impact in it. Man, what is the Association of Independent Publishers role in this, man? Do you guys, is there some form of lobby group that you guys are in touch with? Is there other groups that are trying to work to even try to regulate it or try to make government aware of it? Because just the last point on that, I mean, I ask my guests basically every week at least people in in certain executive roles and so forth, and the answers I'm getting is not filling me with a lot of hope. It's
Mm.
basically like we're all on our own, and we can't keep up with the technology, and that's concerning. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that we do is we really rely on the press council. The press council for us is incredibly important, and the press council it's this self-regulatory body, co-regulatory body. It's basically set up by the industry itself, which I think is quite powerful. They do a lot of work around AI and AI, yeah, I mean AI policy work, lobby group in terms of AI issues. So, so I mean, my sense is that that's what we're going to do. I mean, we've got to work. We need to get money and and I think one of the other institutions that's doing a lot of good. Wesley.
Um,
Hi.
I think
Oh God.
I think
What
I just check now. My network, my network is also a bit faulty here. So I'm
okay.
thinking let's just wrap it up. I
Let's
did
wrap
kind
it.
of get what you were saying about like the press council sort of being in charge of that. And I'll put some, you know, I'll definitely make this work. And I'll if there's anything else I need for, you know, I'll just communicate with you. But let's just wrap up with the event on the 13th of November in Sunnyside. Yeah, you can just tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about
so let
it
me tell you
and
about it. So
all of it.
we're really excited. We have the deputy minister in the presidency, Kenny Moralong, who's going to be coming and giving a keynote address. We also have Dr. Sizwe and Pofu Walsh actually coming to give us a provocation around the future of media. And in fact, I think he's going to be talking about like podcasting and influencers and where's the media environment moving, and issues around ethics. We have our chairperson, Aneta Ngaba, who is amazing. She is basically the publisher of Dizindaba News in the Western Cape, in Paarl. And she is going to be giving a speech about AIP, about the industry. A lot of the questions you've actually asked me are going to be things that she's going to be touching on. Sustainability, where do we come from? Who are these kind of amazing front runners amongst us? And it's going to be a celebration. It's going to be a celebration of our veteran publishers. It's going to be looking back over the last 20 years, looking forward to the next 20 years. And it's basically what we call like a family event of our stakeholders, our supporters, and our publishers. And our whole board will be there. And we're super excited. And Wesley, we would love you to come. So please join us. You can be one of our supporters there.
Thank you for the
We would
thank you
be
for
very
the
happy
thank you
to
for the
support you.
invite, man. It's funny, like the connection all of a sudden is working.
Beautifully.
We spoke about AI and there was a problem. Now all of a sudden it's working. I don't know. I don't want to leave on a conspiracy note, but anyway, I'll fix that. I'll fix that. But I'll definitely be in touch regarding that. Also, just for my listeners, I'll add all the details to the event, the Association of Independent Publishers website, all that in the description box below. And Kate, just the last thing, about a week, I'll publish the episode as in next week. Well, I'll let you know when, and I'll send you the thing when it's done. And I also chop it up. I usually do it about a week after the thing, where I produce shorts, and then the line is cut again. But I think we can actually wrap it up there. Sorry about the bad connection, everybody. I'll definitely try to make it work in the last publication. Kate, you still there? You know what now? I'm actually just